Hey everyone, Rito here, and today we're going to talk about some advanced tanking principles and tips that I've personally used and I've had people ask me about. This is not going to be a comprehensive tanking guide, but more of an advanced look into areas involved with tanking endgame content. First, we are going to talk about the primary objectives of a tank. I classify these as the bare minimum to run elite content and possibly elite plus content depending on the group. At this stage you will get into LFG runs and people will generally be okay with running with you in the group. Staying alive is self-explanatory and arguably the most important duty of a tank. The best recommendation I can give for this is to run Lazarus Pitwater and to do boss fights enough that you can memorize their attack patterns. When you know a boss's attack pattern, you can accordingly evade or counter their heavy hitting moves that might cause you to die. An example of this is in Neuron's Underworld Elite last boss. You can counter Neuron's Doomspin with a block, or roll his hammer throw to ensure he does not keep damaging you for insane amounts. You should also be very comfortable with the rotation of your power set. The last thing you want to think about in a boss fight is which ability to press next, as you want all your mental energy to be used on prediction and to handle unexpected scenarios. Another big source of death for tanks is mechanics. Performing mandatory mechanics generally means that you should not fail anything that would cause the group or you to wipe. An example of this is in the Source Wall Elite second boss fight. If you are tanking a boss in the corner away from the group and you get rebuked isolation on you, you must ensure that the damage is split so the group does not die. There are other mechanics like making sure Selfish does not slam the group or that Darkseid does not kill you single-handedly with his laser. This is also a very raid dependent skill, so the best advice is to get your reps in. Keeping aggro of everything is generally easy as a tank, but can get difficult if you use a single target taunt. Hitting an enemy with any non-single target taunt ability will keep their aggro for about 12 seconds, as long as you don't straight up ignore them. Most of the time you will not lose aggro. Popping a shield in their vicinity or hitting them with a pull is sufficient. When using a single target taunt, however, the aggro works entirely differently. If you do use a single target taunt, any other forms of aggro fail to work on the target that you taunt. This means that if you fail to use a single target taunt again on the target, you will lose aggro even if you use other abilities on it. If you only use a single target taunt, then other enemies will fail to be aggroed. A mistake I saw a lot of tanks do in the last DLC in NUE was to run a single target taunt when solo tanking the first boss. This caused Hatred to constantly lose aggro due to Selfish being single target taunted, and Selfish to lose aggro as well if the single target taunt was not reapplied within 8 seconds. As long as you manage those 3 skills, you should have no problem completing elite content in a decent group. Now let's talk about the secondary objectives of being a tank. These are the skills that will get you invited into really good groups. If you can successfully and consistently perform these, then you will have lots of people that message you as soon as you log into the game, asking you to run Elite or Elite Plus content with them. Keeping everyone in the group alive is a skill that's important not only in boss fights, but also the hallways. Good DPS always want to compare themselves against others and themselves to make sure they are finding the most optimal loadouts and to make sure they are improving. When you let people die in hallways, it pretty much ruins the run for them, and they will have to run again to properly test out their damage. Not to mention, it ruins the fun if you are constantly dying in the hallways and the tank can do something about it, but they don't. One tip for this is to make sure you always point ads and bosses away from the group. This way you can make sure that no one dies to line of sight or cone-shaped attacks. If you're in voice chat, you can also call mechanics out that help people know when to block, roll, move, etc. Another important tip is to make sure you always leave ad sets early. You need to be the first to any ad set to avoid anyone else acquiring aggro from them. A common mistake I see is tanks pulling aggro from within the group and then waiting for ad sets to fully die before moving to the next. Group ad sets quickly and don't waste any time. People hate downtime, including you as the tank. Always group ad sets as fast as possible and start boss fights as soon as possible. A good tank will never make people wait when they don't have to or want to. On this topic, it is mandatory that you as a tank either have super speed, equip the super speed ring, or drink bullet sport drinks. If you don't, you will always be behind the group, and nobody wants that in endgame groups. Allowing other roles to do the bare minimum mechanics is a skill that takes repetitions of any boss fight in order to do to the fullest. One example I can give you of this is in NUE Plus first boss. Selfishness spawns a small ad that periodically stuns the group if not stunned or lunged. In most groups, the healer performs this mechanic, but that necessitates two healers in case one gets stunned by Hell's Hatred. A simpler solution is to just lunge it as the tank. You perform the normal duty of tanking a single boss, and correspondingly the mechanics for that boss, but you also lunge the ad to free up the healer, allowing them to drop greens, and make it so even if they get stunned, it's not a deal breaker at all. If you can manage these skills, then you will be routinely invited to groups with really good players in them, and people will truly enjoy running with you tanking in the group. Now let's get into the tertiary objectives. These are the skills that will get you invited into top leagues and the best groups. Keeping bosses and ads still is very important, as many abilities drop pools that damage enemies standing in them over time. Orbital strikes also only work on proximity. Everyone prefers when things are not moving all over the screen, as it makes seeing what is going on much easier. In order to do this, you need to learn the attack patterns of bosses, and you need to get counters to make sure you are not dying when holding bosses still. If you absolutely cannot hold them still, then you should make them move in a very predictable pattern. This makes it easy for the group to keep track of the enemies, and so people do not get in your way. This also ties in with making sure the healer does not have to baby you all the time. You should always be minimizing the damage you receive in order to reduce the time the healer has to spam priority to keep you alive. A healer's job is not only to keep you alive, but to drop greens with the group and do as much damage as possible, especially with the new 5 artifact change. When you are taking considerable damage always, it puts them in a state of permanent healing, which can make them fail mechanics or simply just not enjoy the game. Lastly, let's talk about reducing the time of the run. A lot of things contribute to this, but as a tank, you lead the group. You dictate the pace, and accordingly people follow. The loadouts you run should enable the group to do as much damage as possible to keep the times of the runs low. You should stop running things like Mystic and Superman, and instead run things like Refractor, Batman Who Laughs, Nubia, John Constantine, or even Poison Ivy. Your survivability should be good enough to not depend on arts and allies that keep you alive. Doing all the skills in the primary, secondary, and tertiary categories will make it so everyone has a good time running with you. At the end of the day, people want to run with tanks that make the raid fun, and it is your job in a sense to make the raid as fun as possible for everyone involved. Tanks are always the first to be criticized when things go wrong, and when things go wrong, it always seems like it's a tank issue. You should be open to the fact that you indeed did make a mistake and should always be looking to make less and improve from them. Everybody makes mistakes, even the best tanks, but what makes people enjoy running with you is when you own up to it. It is important that we not blame or overly apologize, but instead thank people for the advice and learn from it. I am not going to tell you exactly what to run on any given power, as this is not a loadout guide video, but I will give some direction on the certain things that help me when I tank with the meta powers. Another harsh reality of tanking is that not every power is made the same, and not every power can keep up with the meta ones. And advice I would give right now is to never go fire or earth if you care about tanking and want to be really good at it. There are certain things that these powers just cannot do, and because of that you will always be partially dependent on the group to ensure that runs are smooth and fun. The biggest drawback to earth is that the pulls break things out. You can run lasso, but the artifact really makes runs messy, and it's a bandage solution to just simply picking a better power. The biggest drawback to fire is that you have almost no survivability when the healer is not helping you. I would also throw atomic in the do not run list, but its saving grace is mass density and the use of mass density in certain niche boss fights and feats. Let's go over some rage tips. The first thing is to always run Dreadful Blast in hallways. You can CC ads from afar, and it helps when the gates initially come down. If anybody used to ever run ahead of the tank, you can just Dreadful Blast to CC the ads before they were to hit the group. In boss fights where you can get away with not having Dreadful Blast, I would run Eviscerating Chain. The benefits of this are Ebon and Batman Who Laughs. Ebon grants you 30% shield and massive power back to make sure you never run out, where Batman Who Laughs puts a massive debuff on the boss, which stacks with all other debuffs and makes the fights go much faster. A minor thing I would recommend is to run Nubia on the hallways, as Nubia stack with each other and any little buff helps, even if tiny. Let's talk about Constantine now. This is a really important buff that stacks with other Constantines, and you should be dropping it off cooldown with the group. Just make sure to run to them as you pop it and animation cancel it so you don't spend too long on the group. This is how I would do it in a fight. Let's say you're tanking over here and the group is over here. You would run over to the group, pop your Constantine, animation cancel, or run back to where you were. You never want to stand too far with the group because you might pull an attack to them that would get them killed. As a rage tank, you do have a ton of different animation cancels. You have Breakout Trinket, Personal Dampening Field, Severe Punishment, Redirected Rage, Ire, and even Hard Light Shield if you run it. You can cancel your Rage Crash, you can cancel your Mercy, you can cancel your Pull, you can cancel your Supply Drop, and you can even cancel your Chrono. You never want to be caught in animation too long, as it could get you killed. The Breakout Trinket is very important to make sure ads get grouped and that you pull aggro as fast as possible. If you take too long to pull ads or aggro them, your group will die, and again, nobody wants that to happen. You simply Breakout Trinket to animation cancel a pull and go into another pull instantly. Here is one neat trick to pull two distant ad sets to each other. I personally use this on General Craze and SCSE and in the final hallway in NUE. You lock on into run by, into pull, into severe, into drop target, into pull the next set. You can really do this on any power, but make sure to be careful if you use the Breakout Trinket to cancel your pull, as it will orient you facing the wrong direction. One important trick with Rage is Grey Ranging your Dreadful Blast to pull aggro. This ability hits when you are in the Grey range, and you can keep aggro without subjecting yourself to attacks from a boss. This is important in boss fights where you have to kite. Here are some ways that I dodge or counter heavy hitting combos. That pretty much wraps up my video, and if you have any questions or want to learn more about what loadouts I run, what artifacts I run, what allies, what gear, etc., then feel free to ask in the comments and I'll either respond or make a follow-up video if the demand is high. With that, have a great day everyone, and I hope you all enjoy this Fearful Day DLC. See y'all later.